Are you ready for a story that will challenge everything you believe about love and family? Before we begin, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single plot twist. A chilling shiver of dread ran down billionaire widower Ethan Caldwell's spine. His fingers tightened around his wine glass as the whispers rippled through the lavish ballroom. He was here as a crucial business partner to the bride's father, a commitment he couldn't break. But all he truly wanted was to be home with his son. Then, a vision of elegance appeared. It was his son's nanny, Lucy Polani, transformed and gliding through the crowd, holding his 4-year-old son, Liam's hand. "I can't do this," Ethan Caldwell muttered, loosening his tie as he stared at his reflection. The navy blue suit was immaculate, but the dark circles under his eyes told the true story, the exhaustion of a man trying to be both father and mother. Since his wife, Eleanor, passed away 2 years ago, social events had become a special kind of torture, especially weddings. This one was particularly painful, with the daughter of his most important business partner getting married. Missing it would jeopardize business alliances that took years to build. A burst of childish laughter from the hallway broke his somber thoughts. At least Liam was happy. His 4-year-old had found some of the joy he'd lost after his mother's death, and much of the credit went to Lucy, the nanny he hired 6 months ago. "Daddy! Daddy!" Liam's little figure burst into the room, his curly blonde hair bouncing with every step. "Look at my tie. Lou showed me how to put it on all by myself. Lou showed me how to—" Ethan knelt to his son's level, admiring the lopsided knot. It was crooked and too loose, but the pride in Liam's blue eyes, so like his mother's, was worth more than perfection. "You look very dashing, champ," he said, gently adjusting the knot. "A real gentleman. Are we going to a party?" the boy asked, bouncing on his heels with excitement. Guilt pierced Ethan like a dagger. He was breaking another promise to spend Saturday together. "I have to go to a wedding, Liam. But you'll stay with Lucy and do something fun, right?" Disappointment transformed the boy's face. His shoulders slumped, and his lower lip began to tremble. Ethan's resolve crumbled. He had canceled 3 park trips, 2 zoo visits, and a planetarium excursion in recent months. The Caldwell empire wouldn't run itself, but his son wouldn't grow up alone either. "You promised today would be our day," Liam whispered, with a heart-wrenching maturity for his 4 years. "You promised, Daddy." Ethan sighed deeply. He couldn't miss the wedding, not with the merger negotiation that would double the value of his companies. But he also couldn't keep failing his son. "I know, champ, and I'm so sorry." A soft cough from the doorway interrupted the moment. Lucy was there, in her usual nanny uniform, comfortable trousers and a simple blouse. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore no makeup. Yet, Ethan had always noticed her beauty, with those amber eyes that seemed to read his thoughts. "Mr. Caldwell, may I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, with that subtle, soft accent. "Of course," he replied, ruffling Liam's hair. "Go find your new shoes, champ." When the boy ran off, Lucy entered the room, maintaining the professional distance she always meticulously respected. "I heard your conversation," she began, with a quiet determination he had come to admire. "And I think I have a solution. Why don't we take Liam to the wedding?" Ethan blinked, surprised. "Take a 4-year-old to a formal event? Lucy, you know how he can get when he's bored." A confident smile lit up the nanny's face. "I'll take care of him. I have experience with children at weddings," she added with a twinkle in her eye Ethan couldn't quite decipher. "Besides, the invitation says Ethan Caldwell and guest, doesn't it?" "Yes, but then there's no problem. Liam will be happy to go with his father, and I will make sure he behaves. When he gets tired, I'll bring him home." The proposal made sense, but Ethan was hesitant. While Lucy had proven to be exceptionally capable, a high society wedding was different from a day at the park. "Are you sure?" These events can be complicated. Lucy held his gaze with a mix of resolve and something more. Something that made an unexpected warmth spread through Ethan's chest. Trust me, Mr. Caldwell. Liam needs time with his father, and you need to fulfill your social obligations. We can make it work. The sincerity in her voice broke down his last reservations. All right, he conceded. Get Liam ready. We leave in an hour. As Lucy left with a satisfied smile, Ethan stared at the closed door. There was something about this woman that challenged all his defenses, that made him trust her, even though trust was a luxury he hadn't allowed himself since Eleanor's death. Perhaps it was the way Liam adored her, or maybe the calm she radiated, even in the most chaotic moments. Or maybe, he admitted to himself, it was the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't looking. Time flew by with last-minute calls and contract reviews. When Ethan finally checked his watch, it was time to leave. He walked out of his office, adjusting the platinum cufflinks that Eleanor had given him for his last birthday. "Liam! Lucy!" he called, heading to the foyer. "It's time to—" The words died in his throat. Standing before him, holding his perfectly groomed son's hand, was a woman he barely recognized. Lucy had completely transformed her appearance. A sophisticated champagne-colored dress hugged her figure with elegant simplicity. Her hair, usually pulled back, fell in soft waves, framing a face that, with subtle makeup, revealed features worthy of a fashion magazine. She was not the practical, simple Nanny he knew. She was a stunning woman who looked at him with a mix of shyness and defiance. "Lucy," he stammered. Unable to hide his astonishment, she blushed slightly, but held her composure. "I hope you don't mind, Mr. Caldwell. I thought it would be more appropriate for the occasion." "You look like a princess, Lou," Liam chimed in with childish admiration. "Don't you think so, Daddy?" Ethan nodded, still dazed. "You look different." A shadow of doubt crossed Lucy's face. "If you prefer, I can change." "No," he hastened to reply. "You're perfect. It's just, I wasn't expecting that a nanny could look so beautiful." She finished with a smile that mixed humor and a hint of challenge. "That you could look even more beautiful," Ethan thought. But the words stayed trapped in his mind. "We should go," he said instead, checking his watch to hide his sudden nervousness. The limousine ride was filled with Liam's enthusiastic questions about the wedding and Lucy's patient answers. Ethan, meanwhile, struggled to keep his eyes off her, trying to ignore the subtle scent of vanilla and jasmine he had never noticed beneath the usual smell of cookies and baby soap. When had he started to notice these details? And why now, after 2 years immersed in grief and responsibility, was he thinking about how beautiful Lucy's profile looked against the car window? The elegant church appeared before them, surrounded by luxury cars and photographers. Ethan felt the familiar tension in his shoulders. He hated being the center of attention, especially since the tabloids had dubbed him America's most eligible widower after Eleanor's death. "Liam, remember what we practiced," Lucy said softly, adjusting the boy's tie. "You're a gentleman at an important party." "Yes, Lou." The boy nodded seriously. "I'm going to be very good, so Daddy is proud." Ethan felt a pang of emotion. Sometimes he forgot how much Liam craved his approval, how desperately he sought to make him smile, since Eleanor was no longer there to balance his natural seriousness with her easy laugh. "I'm always proud of you, champ," he murmured, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. When the car stopped, the chauffeur opened the door. Ethan stepped out first, taking a deep breath to prepare for the stares and comments. Then he helped Liam down, who was looking at the magnificence of the place with wide eyes. Finally, he extended his hand to Lucy. She hesitated for a moment before accepting it, and when their fingers met, Ethan felt a jolt of electricity run up his arm. Lucy emerged from the vehicle with a natural grace that reminded him of the models his company occasionally worked with. Several heads turned, and Ethan could hear the barely disguised whispers. "Caldwell's with a woman. Who is she? Looks like his morning is finally over." He felt Lucy tense slightly beside him, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "Ignore them," he murmured, surprising himself with the protective instinct that surged. "They're vultures hungry for gossip." "I don't care about them," she replied in a low voice. "I'm just worried that Liam will feel overwhelmed." This answer, so focused on his son's well-being and not on social appearances, made something shift inside Ethan. How many women had approached him in these 2 years, feigning interest in Liam, when they really wanted his fortune or his name? The receptionist at the entrance checked her list as they approached. "Mr. Caldwell, table 16, main section," she indicated with a professional smile, then looked tenderly at Liam. "Your son is so handsome, ma'am. He looks a lot like his father." Ethan opened his mouth to correct the mistake, but he felt Lucienne gently rest her hand on his arm. "Thank you very much," she replied with a serene smile, offering no clarification. As they walked into the elegant ballroom, Ethan leaned toward her. "Why didn't you correct her?" Lucy shrugged with a mix of pragmatism and mischief. "Sometimes it's easier to go with the flow," she added with a twinkle in her eye Ethan hadn't seen before. "Besides, it would be hard to explain who I am exactly today. Wouldn't you agree?" She was right. How to introduce her? As the nanny who had decided to transform herself into a sophisticated companion so he could fulfill both his social obligations and his son's need for a day out? The situation was, to say the least, unconventional. They found their table, strategically located near the couple, a reflection of Ethan's importance in the bride's father's business. Liam behaved admirably, observing everything with curiosity, but staying close to Lucy, who had discreetly brought some small toys in her elegant bag to keep him entertained. While Ethan greeted some acquaintances, he couldn't help but glance at Lucy and his son. They formed such a natural, harmonious picture that several guests automatically assumed they were a family. And for some reason he didn't want to overanalyze. He didn't feel inclined to contradict them. The ceremony was about to begin when the bride's father, Mr. Rodriguez, approached to greet him. "Ethan, I was afraid you wouldn't come," the burly man exclaimed, patting him on the shoulder. "Contracts can wait, but my Mercedes would never forgive me if her favorite godfather missed her wedding." "I wouldn't miss it for anything," Ethan replied with a genuine smile. He sincerely appreciated the young bride, whom he had watched grow up. "Congratulations, Arthur. You've organized a splendid wedding." Arthur's eyes drifted to Lucy and Liam, who was now silently drawing in a small notebook. "I see you haven't come alone," he observed with barely disguised curiosity. "I didn't know you were seeing someone." Ethan felt an inexplicable reluctance to clarify the situation. Before he could respond, the music announced the imminent start of the ceremony. "I'll introduce you after the ceremony," he simply said, grateful for the timely interruption. The guests began to take their seats. Ethan led Liam and Lucy to their assigned places, feeling a strange mix of emotions, uncertainty, confusion, but also a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced in a long time. When they sat down at the table, Liam sat between them, a natural bridge that he had always been. Ethan looked straight ahead, absorbed in his thoughts, when he felt someone lean toward him. It was Lucy, who moved close enough for only him to hear her. The soft scent of her perfume enveloped him as she whispered close to his ear. "I came with you today." 3 simple words, but loaded with a meaning that went beyond the obvious. It wasn't just a clarification of her role at the event. It was a statement, a promise, maybe even a revelation. Ethan turned his face, meeting those amber eyes just inches from his own. For the first time in 2 years, he felt the world around him stop, the weight on his shoulders lighten. And for the first time since Eleanor's death, Ethan Caldwell allowed himself to contemplate the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the future could hold something more than obligations, responsibilities, and memories. Those three words hung between them as the wedding music filled the church. Ethan tried to focus on the ceremony, on the radiant bride walking down the aisle, on the business he needed to discuss with important guests. But his mind kept returning, again and again, to Lucy's whisper. "I came with you today, not as an employee, not as the nanny, but as your companion, as someone who had chosen to be by your side." Liam, sitting between them, watched everything with childish fascination, occasionally whispering questions that Lucy answered with patient sweetness. Ethan couldn't help but notice how she kept a protective hand on his son's shoulder, how she anticipated his needs even before the boy expressed them. It was a skill he had admired since he hired her, but now, in this different context, it took on a new meaning. The ceremony proceeded with the elegance and pomp that characterized high society weddings. Ethan found himself several times glancing at Lucy, studying her profile as she watched the exchange of vows with a dreamy expression. What was she thinking? Was she imagining her own wedding someday? Did she have someone waiting for her when her workdays ended at the Caldwell mansion? The idea caused a pang of discomfort that surprised him. He had no right to feel, what, jealous? It was absurd. Lucy was an exemplary employee, nothing more. Or at least, that's what she had been until this afternoon, when she decided to become something undefinable that made his heart beat in a way he thought he had forgotten. Applause erupted when the newlyweds sealed their union with a kiss. Liam, excited by the commotion, clapped enthusiastically, drawing fond smiles from nearby guests. Ethan joined the applause mechanically, too aware of Lucy's presence beside him. When the ceremony ended and the guests began moving to the reception hall, Liam gently tugged on his father's sleeve. "Daddy, can we have some of that red juice?" he asked, pointing to the champagne glasses offered by waiters on silver trays. "That's champagne, champ, and it's for grown-ups," Ethan replied with a smile. "But I'm sure we can find something special for you." A passing waiter seemed to hear the conversation. "We have berry juice for the children, sir," he offered, served in similar glasses so the little ones feel included. "Yes, please," Liam exclaimed, excited. Ethan was grateful, and soon his son was proudly holding his adult-looking glass. The expression of dignity with which Liam drank small sips, imitating the adults around him, was as comical as it was heartwarming. Lucy watched the scene with a smile that lit up her entire face. When her eyes met Ethan's, something intangible passed between them. A complicity, a silent acknowledgement that this moment, this small, perfect moment, was special precisely because of its simplicity. "Mr. Caldwell, so good to see you." The voice interrupted the moment. Ethan turned to find Frederick Monroe, one of his most aggressive competitors in the real estate sector. Beside him, a young, overly bejeweled woman was watching with barely disguised curiosity. Monroe greeted Ethan with professional courtesy. "Didn't expect to see you here. My niece is friends with the bride," the man explained, then looked brazenly at Lucy. "I see you've come with good company. A surprise, I must say. Rumor had it you were inconsolable." The condescending tone made Ethan clench his jaw. He felt Lucy's hand lightly brush his, a touch so subtle it could have been accidental. But it was enough to calm him. "Let me introduce Lucy," he said, deliberately omitting any explanation of their relationship. "Charmed," she replied, with a confidence that seemed to come from years of moving in these circles, not from 6 months of caring for a 4-year-old. Monroe's appraising gaze swept over Lucy from head to toe, lingering a second too long on the curve of her neck. Ethan felt a wave of irritation. "Your son is huge," Monroe commented, diverting his attention to Liam, who had moved closer to Lucy, instinctively seeking protection from the stranger. "Last time I saw him, He was barely walking. Must be hard raising him alone. The provocation was evident. Ethan was about to respond when Lucy intervened naturally. "He's not alone," she said, placing a protective hand on Liam's shoulder. "He has a support team, and most importantly, he has his father, who does an extraordinary job." The firmness in her voice, combined with the sweetness with which she addressed Liam afterward, left Monroe momentarily speechless. "Let's go find more of that yummy juice, Liam," she suggested, and with a polite smile to the adults, she walked away with the boy. "Interesting woman," Monroe commented when they were alone. "Doesn't seem like your usual type. Too real." "Not everything in life is about appearances, Monroe," Ethan replied, his irritation growing. "If you'll excuse me, I should join them." As he walked away, he overheard Monroe's comment to his companion. Who would have thought? The inconsolable widower replaced by the nanny. Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. How did Monroe know Lucy was the nanny? He felt a mix of shame and fury, not for himself, but for Lucy. She didn't deserve to be reduced to cruel gossip. He found her by the dessert table, helping Liam choose from the impressive variety. The scene was so ordinary, so familiar, that it contrasted sharply with the ostentatious luxury surrounding them. Yet Lucy moved with a natural grace that made her seem perfectly in place. "Everything okay?" she asked as he approached. Her expression tense. "Monroe knows you're Liam's nanny," he replied in a low voice. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have exposed you to this." To his surprise, Lucy let out a soft laugh. "And that worries you?" she asked, genuinely amused. "Mr. Caldwell, I've cared for children in 3 different countries. I've cleaned scraped knees, dried tears, and sung lullabies at all hours of the night. Being a nanny is not something I'm ashamed of." Her response left him speechless. It wasn't just what she said, but the dignity with which she said it. Without pretense, without false modesty. "It's not shame," he clarified, feeling the need to explain himself. "It's that I don't want you to be disrespected because of me." Lucy's eyes softened. "Ethan," she said, using his first name for the first time. "If I've learned one thing working with privileged families, it's that respect has nothing to do with money or social position. It has to do with how you treat others, and you have always treated me with respect." There was a sincerity in her words that dissipated the tension he felt. Ethan nodded, grateful for her understanding. "Look, Daddy," Liam interrupted, holding up a small cake. "This one has your name on it." Ethan looked at the dessert his son was showing him, confused. Indeed, a small card next to the cake said Ethan. "They're party favors for the guests," Lucy explained, smiling at his confusion. "Each one has a guest's name on it. Liam has been looking for yours for 10 minutes. The pride on his son's face as he handed him the small gift made something melt in Ethan's heart. It wasn't the cake itself, but the fact that Liam had wanted to make this small gesture, to find something special for him. "Thank you, champ," he said, bending down to hug him. "It's the best gift I've received in a long time." The dinner began shortly after. Table 16 was shared with 2 other couples Ethan knew superficially. The introductions were brief, and to his relief, no one openly questioned Lucy's presence. If they were curious, they hid it well. Liam, to Ethan's surprise, behaved impeccably. He ate carefully, spoke softly when he wanted to ask something, and showed unusual patience for his age. Occasionally, Lucy would whisper an instruction or discreetly help him with the right utensil, but she did it so naturally that she seemed more like a loving mother than a professional nanny. "Your son is charming," the woman sitting across from them commented. "So well behaved for his age." "Thank you," Ethan replied proudly, although the credit is mainly due to Lucy. "Oh no," she interjected with modesty. "Liam is like this by nature. I just reinforce what is already in him." The way she spoke of his son, acknowledging his virtues without idealizing him, touched something deep in Ethan. Eleanor had been the same, able to see Liam's natural goodness without falling into the blind indulgence that so many parents showed. Dinner progressed, enlivened by the orchestra's music. Nearing dessert, Liam began to show signs of fatigue. His eyelids were heavy, and his answers became slower. "I think someone needs a rest," Lucy murmured, noticing the boy's poorly disguised yawns. Ethan checked his watch. It was barely 9 o'clock, and the party would continue late into the night. He had fulfilled his obligation to attend the ceremony and dinner, but he knew he should stay for the informal conversations where agreements were really forged. "I can take him home," Lucy offered, reading the indecision on his face. "You stay as long as you need to." It was the logical solution. It was what they had initially agreed upon. And yet, for some reason, he didn't want to overanalyze. The idea of Lucy leaving suddenly made the prospect of staying at the party seem tedious. "No," he decided, surprising both Lucy and himself. "We'll all go together. I've fulfilled the essentials." The smile she gave him was worth more than any contract he could have negotiated that night. The ride home passed in comfortable silence. Liam had fallen asleep as soon as the car started, curled up against Lucy, who stroked his hair with soft, rhythmic gestures. Ethan watched them from the opposite seat, overwhelmed by the sense of intimacy that emanated from the scene. It wasn't the first time he had seen Lucy carry his sleeping son, but tonight, in the car's dim light, and with that dress that completely transformed her presence, the image took on a different meaning. "It was a perfect night for him," Lucy whispered, noticing his gaze. "He won't stop talking about this for weeks." "Thank you for suggesting it," Ethan replied, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Liam. "You were right. It was exactly what we needed." What I needed, he thought, though he didn't dare say it. When the limo stopped in front of the Caldwell mansion, Ethan got out first and in an instinctive gesture, extended his arms to take Liam. Lucy transferred him gently, and for a brief moment, their faces were just inches apart. The scent of jasmine enveloped him again, along with something new, a human warmth, the heat his son's body had left on her. "I'll take him to his room," Ethan murmured, surprising her. Normally, Ethan came home so late that it was Lucy who put Liam to bed. It was part of the routine. But tonight, something had changed. "Of course," she nodded, following him as they climbed the main staircase. Liam's room was decorated with a mural of stars and planets that Eleanor had painted during her pregnancy. Ethan carefully placed his son on the bed, while Lucy turned on the small night lamp that projected constellations on the ceiling. With synchronized movements that spoke of a shared routine, Lucy took the boy's pajamas from the drawer, while Ethan removed his shoes and tie. They didn't speak. It wasn't necessary. There was a harmony in their actions that Ethan had never experienced with previous nannies. Once Liam was comfortably tucked in, they both quietly left the room. In the hallway, the tension that had floated between them all night seemed to intensify. "I should go change," Lucy said, breaking the silence. "This isn't exactly my usual uniform." There was a touch of humor in her voice, but also something more, a vulnerability perhaps, as if she feared that by taking off the elegant dress, she would become invisible to him again. "It looks good on you," Ethan replied, surprised by his own boldness. "The dress, I mean, although the uniform does too." He stopped, frustrated by his sudden awkwardness. He, who negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts without batting an eye, who led board meetings with relentless authority, was stammering like a teenager in front of his son's nanny. Lucy smiled, and her smile lit up the dimly lit hallway. "Thank you," she said simply. "It means a lot coming from you." "It's Ethan," he corrected, almost without thinking. "I think after tonight, we could do away with formalities. At least when we're alone." A spark of surprise, followed by something deeper, crossed Lucy's eyes. "Ethan," she repeated, as if testing how his name sounded on her lips. "Good night, then." "Good night, Lucy." He watched her walk down the hall toward the service wing, where her room was. Only when she disappeared from view did Ethan exhale deeply, not having realized he was holding his breath. What was happening to him? 2 years had passed since Eleanor's death. 2 years in which he had rejected every attempt by his friends to set him up with someone. 2 years dedicated exclusively to his son and his company. And now, all of a sudden, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman who cared for his son, the woman who had transformed a potentially disastrous night into something special. He went to his office instead of his room. He needed to think, to clear his mind. He poured a whiskey and sank into the leather armchair, the only concession to luxury in that austere, functional space. From the desk, a photograph of Eleanor looked at him with that smile that had always been able to light up his darkest days. What would she think of all this? Would she feel betrayed by these confusing feelings that were beginning to awaken in him? Or, knowing her generosity, would she approve that he was finally opening his heart again? "I miss you," he murmured to the photograph. "Every day." And it was true. The pain of her loss was still there, a constant presence in his life. But tonight, for the first time, he felt that this pain could coexist with something more. As if there was room in his heart for both the memory of Eleanor and for what exactly? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. When he said, "Come in," he expected to see his butler, Ramirez, with some last-minute question. Instead, it was Lucy who poked her head in. She had changed the elegant dress for simple pants and a loose sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail, and her face was clean of makeup. And yet, Ethan felt the same impact seeing her as when she had appeared transformed hours earlier. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said. "I just wanted to let you know Liam woke up briefly and asked for you. I told him you'd come say goodnight." "Of course," Ethan replied, standing up. "I'll be right there." But he didn't move. Something in Lucy's expression kept him anchored in place. "Is something else wrong?" he asked. Lucy hesitated for a moment, as if debating internally. Then, with a determination that revealed her character, she entered the office and closed the door behind her. "I wanted to apologize," she began. "For the confusion at the wedding, I shouldn't have let them think I was my partner," Ethan completed as she trailed off. Lucy felt a slight blush tint her cheeks. "It was presumptuous of me, and probably uncomfortable for you." "For you," she corrected herself, remembering his request from minutes earlier. Ethan took a step toward her, reducing the distance between them. "It wasn't uncomfortable," he said sincerely. "In fact, I think it was the first time in 2 years that I enjoyed a social event." "Really?" The hope in her voice was palpable, almost tangible in the air between them. "Lucy," Ethan began, choosing his words carefully. "What you did today goes beyond your responsibilities as a nanny. You transformed what would have been a tedious obligation into a special night. Not just for Liam, but for me too." She smiled, but her smile held a shadow of sadness. "I was just doing my job," she replied. "Liam deserved to be with his father." "No," Ethan insisted. "What you did today was not in any contract. No one asked you to dress elegantly, to handle complex social situations, to protect Liam from prying eyes, to defend me against Monroe." He stopped, realizing he was revealing how much he had noticed, how much he had cared about every little gesture she had made during the night. "I did it because I wanted to," Lucy responded with simplicity. "Because Liam is a wonderful boy who deserves every opportunity to be happy." "And why? What about me?" he interrupted, as if he had been about to cross an invisible line. "What about you?" Ethan encouraged, taking another step toward her. Lucy looked up, meeting his eyes with a mix of fear and courage. "Because you deserve more than sitting alone at a table, fulfilling obligations, and pretending you don't miss your family." The precision with which she had described his existence for the past 2 years left him speechless. It was exactly how he had felt, playing the part of the successful businessman, the responsible father, while inside, loneliness consumed him. "I don't want to replace Eleanor," Lucy continued, surprising him with her frankness. "No one could, and least of all me. She was extraordinary. I know that from how Liam talks about her, from the photographs, from how you remember her. I just wanted to lighten the weight you carry a little." Ethan felt something break inside him. Not from pain, but from relief. As if a wall he had carefully built for 2 years was beginning to crumble. "You succeeded," he replied, his voice hoarse with contained emotion. "Tonight, for the first time since Eleanor died, I didn't feel alone." Lucy held her breath. They were so close now that Ethan could distinguish the golden flecks in her amber eyes, the slight tremble in her lips. "I don't know how to handle this," he confessed. "It wasn't in my plans to feel what I'm feeling." "And what are you feeling?" she asked in a whisper, with a bravery that contrasted with the vulnerability in her eyes. Before Ethan could answer, a distant sob broke the moment. They both immediately recognized Liam's crying. "He must have had a nightmare," Lucy said, taking a step back. "He usually has them after very stimulating days." "I'll go to him," Ethan replied, though he didn't move. For a moment, they both stood still, caught in the gravity of what they had been about to confess. Then, with a natural synchronicity, they walked toward the door together. "Ethan," Lucy said, just before they left the office, "this conversation isn't over," she completed with a small smile. "I know." And with those words, they both headed toward Liam's room, toward the boy who, without knowing it, had become the bridge that connected their lonely hearts. Liam was sitting up in his bed, hugging the teddy bear Eleanor had given him before she died. His cheeks were wet with tears, but he calmed visibly when he saw his father and Lucy appear together in his doorway. "Daddy," he sobbed, extending his arms. "I dreamed about Mommy. She was at the wedding, but when I tried to get close, she disappeared." Ethan felt his heart contract. He sat on the edge of the bed and wrapped his son in a protective embrace, while Lucy stayed discreetly in the background, giving them space for that intimate moment. "Dreams sometimes confuse us, champ," Ethan murmured, stroking Liam's tangled hair. "But Mommy never truly disappears. She's right here," he said, pointing to the boy's heart. "And here," he gently touched his head, "in our memories and in our love." "Do you think she would have liked the party?" Liam asked, with that disarming innocence unique to children. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Before he could find the right words, Lucy stepped forward. "May I?" she asked in a low voice, looking at Ethan. He nodded, grateful for her intervention. Lucy sat on the other side of the bed, forming a small circle with the three of them. "Liam, I never met your mommy," she began softly. "But from everything you've told me about her, from the photographs, and from how your daddy talks about her, I'm sure she would have loved seeing you so handsome in your tie, and she would have been very proud of how well you behaved at the wedding." Her words, so simple yet so sincere, seemed to comfort the boy, who nodded thoughtfully as he wiped his tears with the back of his hand. "Mommy always said I was the most handsome prince," he commented, a small smile appearing through the sadness. "And she was absolutely right," Lucy confirmed, winking at him. Ethan watched the exchange with a mix of gratitude and astonishment. The naturalness with which Lucy spoke of Eleanor, without trying to replace her or diminish her importance, but also without treating her as a taboo subject, was exactly what Liam needed, what they both needed. "Can you both stay until I fall asleep?" the boy asked, looking at them alternately. "Of course, champ," Ethan replied, making himself more comfortable on the bed. Lucy nodded and began to hum a gentle lullaby in Spanish that Liam adored. Ethan recognized the melody. It was one of the songs Eleanor used to sing to their son when he was a baby. However, He felt no pain hearing it from Lucy's lips. On the contrary, there was something comforting in the continuity of that small ritual. Little by little, Liam's eyelids succumbed to fatigue. His breathing became deep and regular as the teddy bear remained firmly hugged against his chest. Ethan and Lucy remained still for a few more minutes, making sure he was completely asleep. Their eyes met over the boy, communicating wordlessly what they both felt. That strange sense of shared intimacy, of complicity, born from their joint care of the little being who united them. With silent movements, they got up from the bed and left the room, leaving the door ajar, just the way Liam liked it. In the hallway, the tension interrupted in the office materialized between them again. But now there was something new, a deeper understanding born from that shared moment with Liam. "Thank you," Ethan said in a low voice, "for knowing exactly what to say." Lucy slightly shrugged. Sometimes children just need permission to remember without feeling like they're betraying those of us who are still here. There was a wisdom in her words that went beyond her youth. Ethan wondered, not for the first time, what experiences had shaped this extraordinary woman who had entered their lives almost by chance. "Did you learn that in your nanny training?" he asked, genuinely curious. A shadow briefly crossed Lucy's face. "I learned it when I was 8, when I lost my father," she replied, with a direct honesty that took him by surprise. "My mother remarried a year later, and everyone acted as if my father had never existed, as if mentioning him was a sign of disrespect to my stepfather." Ethan felt a pang of empathy. Now he better understood why she seemed to intuitively grasp Liam's needs. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "I didn't know. It wasn't on my resume," she replied with a small smile that softened the sadness in her eyes. "Excellent references. Experience in 3 countries, and orphaned at 8. It's not usually a selling point in interviews." Despite the seriousness of the topic, Ethan couldn't help but smile at her comment. "It would have been a point in your favor with me," he replied. "Someone who understands loss from the inside." They stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the new dimension this revelation added to their relationship. They were no longer simply the boss and the employee, or even the widower and the nanny. They were 2 people who shared the experience of loss and the understanding of what it meant to move on. "Ethan," Lucy began, breaking the silence. "About what we were talking about in your office. Would you like some tea?" he interrupted, gesturing toward the stairs. "I think we both could use it after this day." The invitation was clear. He wanted to continue their conversation, but in a more neutral space than his office, a territory marked by Eleanor's presence through her photograph. "I'd love that," Lucy accepted. They went down to this kitchen together, a space normally bustling during the day, now immersed in a cozy silence. Ethan, to Lucy's surprise, knew exactly where the cups were kept and how the electric kettle worked. While she sat on one of the central island stools, he prepared 2 cups of chamomile tea with precise movements that revealed it wasn't his first time doing so. "I didn't know you knew how to make tea," she commented with a smile. "There are many things you don't know about me," he replied, returning the smile as he placed a steaming cup in front of her. "Eleanor taught me. She used to say every man should know how to make at least one comforting drink." "A wise woman," Lucy observed, cupping the mug in her hands to absorb its warmth. "She was," Ethan nodded, sitting across from her. "And she also would have appreciated what you did today for Liam. For us." There was a clear intention in his words, a desire to resume the interrupted conversation. "It was nothing extraordinary," Lucy replied, looking down at her cup. "I just wanted you to have a pleasant night." "Why?" Ethan asked directly. The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. It wasn't just an inquiry about her motives. It was an invitation to reveal what they had both been avoiding naming. Lucy looked up, meeting his eyes with a mix of fear and determination. "Because you deserve to be happy, Ethan," she replied with simplicity. because I've seen how you strive every day to be a good father, a good businessman, a good boss. I've seen you sacrifice your own happiness to fulfill all those responsibilities." She paused, as if gathering the courage for what she was about to say. "And because you matter to me, more than you should, considering our professional relationship." The confession, so direct and honest, left Ethan momentarily speechless. He had expected evasions, perhaps a practical explanation about her dedication to Liam. Not this brave vulnerability that exposed feelings he himself barely dared to acknowledge. "Lucy, he began, but she raised a hand to stop him. "You don't need to answer now," she said with a quiet dignity. "I perfectly understand how complicated this situation is. I'm your son's nanny. I work for you, and you barely know me beyond my role in this house." "You're wrong," Ethan interrupted her. "I know you better than you think." He leaned slightly over the island, shortening the distance between them. "I know your patience when Liam has a tantrum, your creativity when you invent games that help him learn without him realizing it, your intelligence when you discuss books with me that you find in the library, your compassion when you talk to the service staff, always treating them with a respect that many in my position forget to show." With each word, Lucy's eyes widened, surprised by the attention Ethan had paid to details she thought had gone unnoticed. "And today," he continued, "I learned your bravery, your dignity in the face of unpleasant comments, your ability to adapt to situations you weren't hired for." Ethan took a deep breath before adding, "I don't care that you're Liam's nanny. I care about who you are, and who you are, Lucy Polani, is someone who has achieved what no one had in 2 years, making me feel that maybe, just maybe, I could see a future beyond the pain and loneliness." The silence that followed his words was charged with emotion. Lucy blinked several times, holding back tears that threatened to overflow. "Ethan," she whispered finally, "you have to understand that I'm not trying to replace Eleanor. I couldn't, even if I wanted to. I just want a place of your own," he completed, understanding. "Not in the shadow of a memory, but next to me." "I understand, because that's exactly what I need too." The tension between them was palpable, a mix of anticipation and fear about what they were about to start. Because they both knew that, beyond the words, they were on the verge of a path that would change their lives forever. Slowly, almost with reverence, Ethan extended his hand over the granite surface, leaving it halfway between them. A silent invitation, without pressure or expectations. After a moment that seemed eternal, Lucy slid her hand until her fingers brushed against his. A simple contact, but loaded with promises. "One step at a time," she murmured, as if sealing a pact. "One step at a time," Ethan nodded, gently intertwining his fingers with hers. And so, in the stillness of a kitchen at midnight, with their hands joined over a granite island, and the echo of an extraordinary day resonating between them, Ethan Caldwell and Lucy Polani began to write the first chapter of a story neither of them had planned, but which both, in the depths of their hearts, had begun to desire. What do you think will happen to Ethan, Lucy, and Liam? Leave your predictions in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories. For our next chapter, do you want to explore the secrets of Lucy's past? Or do you want to see the new family dynamics in action? Exploring the past. Ethan decides to investigate Lucy's past and confronts her with his findings, revealing secrets about her family and why she became a nanny. Family dynamics. Ethan and Lucy must navigate a new, undefined relationship while dealing with the challenges of raising Liam and the scrutiny of their social circle. Let me know your choice in the comments.